Hi, I'm Jo, and this is my June wrap-up. I read 8 books in June. One of them was Dracula by Bram Stoker. This is my beautiful illustrated edition. It was fun to read. This book scared me. For a book that is 118 years old, it was scary. I loved it. East of the Sun by Gregson. This is a story of 3 women in 1928 who take a boat from England to Bombay. They are part of what was called the fishing fleet. These women would go to Bombay to find themselves some husbands. One of the girls is already engaged to a cavalry officer that she's only met a few times, which is always a good idea. The one woman is their chaperone. She has been paid by the other 2 women's mothers to escort them. It takes like 6 weeks. Ugh, I think that just sounds absolutely terrible to be on a boat for 6 weeks. And then the other character is the girl that's getting married's best friend and her bridesmaid, and her plan is basically to live it up before she finds a husband and settles down. She has some body image issues stemming from her mother. Her mother is very mean. The girl that is engaged is very sheltered. Well, I mean, they're very young, but it just seems like everything always goes her way. And then their chaperone, the reason that she took this job is because she lived in India as a child. She was sent away to English boarding schools because that's what was done. And at separate times, her father, her mother, and her older sister all die in India. So she has been told by the executor of their estate that there is a trunk waiting for her in India, and it's been there for decades. And so she didn't have the money, though, to get there because she's basically an orphan. She has no money, and she was living in just like a little bedsit, whatever it's called, in England, working, and she didn't have the money to make it to India. So this is how she made the money and got her passage paid to go to India so she could go find out what is in this mysterious trunk. Of course, things do not go as planned. There is another person that is in her charge, which is a 16-year-old boy who has some mental issues of some sort and is a troublemaker. He's been kicked out of his boarding school, which is why he's going to India, because his parents are there. And they meet people on the ship. You're there for 6 weeks. You better like some people. And I mean, the ship sounds kind of fun. Like, they had parties and all sorts of stuff. But 6 weeks on a boat in 1928 too. Don't think that sounds like fun. But this is the story, though, of those 3 women and a good handful of years of their lives after they've taken this boat ride and how their lives pan out. I really enjoyed this book. Things did not turn out as expected for any of the women, so I highly recommend this story. Next, I read Fun Home, a family tragicomic by Alison Bechdel. I've never read a graphic novel before, and this one is a memoir. This story in particular is mostly about Alison finding out that her father was gay at the same time that she is coming out that she is gay. And mostly about her father and her somewhat dysfunctional family and her sort of just exploring exactly what happened to her. Lena, Divani, 7 Lives and One Great Love, Memoirs of a Cat. I love this book. Oh my gosh, if you like cats, you'll love this. If you like memoirs, you'll like this. And you'll cry, but it was so good. I never really thought about, they say cats have 9 lives. I never really thought about how they live those 9 lives. I guess I always thought it was the same cat and like something would happen to the cat and it should have died, but it didn't. Like that counted as one of its lives, like falls off of something and it should have died, but it didn't. So it's still in the same body. But in this story, I don't know, maybe this is how everyone takes it. When the cat is done living, when it dies, whatever happens to it, like old age or an accident or whatever, it is born again as a different cat. So in the life that he is living in this book, it's the great love, and he, right from the moment he's born, knows he wants to be adopted by an author. His goal is to find his way into a book because he loves books and stories, and he wants to be basically immortalized through history by being a character or influencing a character in someone's book. And he's a very lucky cat because in this life, when he is born, it turns out he finds out that the people in the yard, the lady is an author. So he sets about endearing himself to her, even though she right out says she does not like cats, and getting her to adopt him. And then this is a story of his life with that woman, and it is so sweet and heartbreaking. And you'll also kind of side-eye your cats from now on. Like, what are you trying to tell me? Because he is extremely smart and he manipulates his owners, and it's fantastic. I really love this book. Tinkers by Paul Harding. This is a winner of the Pulitzer Prize. I'm not sure what year, not too long ago. And this is about a man on his deathbed. He is in his living room and his family is sort of milling around him, kind of just waiting for him to die. And these are his remembrances of different times in his life. But then also mixed in with his remembrances are remembrances of his father when his father was alive and dying or whatever. So sometimes it gets a little confusing because you have to remember you're switching back and forth between the two men, but they aren't all that different. One is a tinker that sells wares and stuff off of his like wagon thing. He goes to like farms and stuff and whatever. And then the guy that is dying, he is a tinker, as in he has fascination with clocks and fixing clocks. If you have any questions about clocks or the history of clocks, there's a lot of stuff about clocks in here. I also read Butterfield 8 by John O'Hara. I already did a book review on this, so I will link to that down below. I read Woodswoman. This is actually, there are more after this, so this is technically Woodswoman 1. It is by LaBastille. I believe this takes place in the 1960s. It wasn't, the publishing date on this is in the 1970s, but I'm pretty sure this takes place like in the 60s or very early 70s. Her husband asks her for a divorce, and she has like 3 months. He tells her the 4th of July, you're gone. So she has a few months to figure out what she's going to do. She worked with him. They had a hotel, and that was what she did. So she goes into the Adirondack mountains, and she finds herself a plot of land. She buys it, and she literally builds her own log cabin. And then she finds out that the log cabin is 12 feet too close to the embankment and has to move it 12 feet. Can you believe that? So it was a very interesting story. She is an ecologist, so there's a lot about how the environment is affecting the Adirondacks, and her life there. It doesn't tell as much of the daily stuff as I thought it would include. It gives a good overview, but then, like I said, there are more books, so maybe they go more in depth. But she does a lot of hiking. She's all alone out there. She has, no phone, no electric. She doesn't have like a real bathroom, and it's her and her dog. She lives on a river. She has to, it's like 1.5 miles or something on a boat to get to her cabin from a parking lot where she has her truck. She goes hiking through the Adirondacks on some trails and whatnot. At one point there is, she's out there and she doesn't know this, but there is a criminal that has escaped from prison, hiding out there in the Adirondacks, which is like bizarro world because that just happened. Apparently, you want to escape prison, you go hide in the Adirondacks. Although they were caught. It was very interesting and I really enjoyed this book. I kind of want to go build myself a cabin out in the woods, but then I remember there are snakes. And I need a toilet. And lastly, I read Gloria Naylor's The Women of Brewster Place. This is a novel in 7 stories. Okay, I thought that these were true stories, but it's not. So I was a bit disappointed there. It's fiction, but it was really good. These are the stories of 7 women who live on Brewster Place in these very bleak apartments. I mean, it's basically like, it's government housing type thing. When the road was first made, it went through from one street to another street, but as the town grew and the street that Brewster Place was off of became like nicer and everything, they put up a brick wall blocking off Brewster Place, which is really weird. So then they had to like go all the way around to get to it, and it just became like the ghetto. And these are the stories of women who lived there, what their lives were like, why they lived there. Some of them have stories about what brought them there. There is a woman that is just addicted to having babies. She just keeps having babies. It's really sad because she loses interest in them once they're bigger. There's just lots of different stories. There is a gay couple that move in and people do not like that. There's the drunk guy that does the maintenance on the buildings. He has a story. It's very interesting and I really enjoyed it. There is another book she wrote that is The Men of Brewster Place. But again, these aren't actual true stories. I mean, I still got a lot out of them, but when you think it's a true story and then you find out it's not, you're kind of disappointed. So those are all the books that I read in the month of June. I had a great reading month. I always say that. I always have a great reading month. But if you have read any of these, let me know down below, and let me know what is a book that you just loved from the month of June. And I will talk to you later. Bye.